My name's Jo Kidd. I'm going to talk to you about our new venture, which is called Vegan Organics Kent, a veganic farm. We're based down in, it's already doing it to me, near Faversham, a place called Bourton under Blean, which is a little village just off the M2 there. It looks quite remote, and it feels quite remote when you're there. It's lovely, but actually we're just literally 5 minutes from the M2 and the A2, so well connected. We've got 5.6 hectares, that's 13.4 acres in old money, and we're leasing that from a local fruit farmer who's very supportive of us. And we're just in the process of buying one of the fields, which is 1.15 hectares, so we have a bit more security. The rest is on a five-year lease. And we moved on to the site in June last year, 2018. So we've kind of been working building up towards that for a long time. It's Vegan Organics Kent is really the culmination of all our shared values, really, if you like, and kind of weaving together the principles and strands from previous projects that we've worked on. When I say we, that's myself and my husband and our daughter, Terry and Rosa, and lots of other people who've been involved in helping as well. So the kind of values really that we're basing that on are values of compassionate living gently on the earth, sharing with other people, so not just being in a kind of our own bubble, not self-sufficient. We're very much into community sufficiency rather than self-sufficiency, and living in harmony with the rest of nature, feeding and healing and nurturing ourselves in ways that do as little harm as possible. So that's our kind of background to the farm. So how did we get to be developing a veganic farm? Our background, I'll give you a little bit of our background because it might be useful as we go through, make a bit more sense of what we're doing. We haven't come from kind of a growing background, if you like, so like a lot of people involved in Vaughan who are real experts in plants and growing and farming. We've come from quite a different background. You're right there, you might struggle a bit with you might want to move, anyone who's that side. They get quite animated over there and quite excited. So here's a few of our projects up here. I'm really a lifelong community activist and organiser as long as I can remember, far back to when I was a child. I was trying to organise and save animals and rescue worms and insects in the garden, that kind of thing. My academic background is social anthropology and political science and education, so quite different in a way to what we're doing now, but to me it makes a lot of sense in terms of ethnobotany and how people work together culturally and connect. Most of my working life has been focused on developing social movements and social enterprises which have been earth-focused and also earthling rights campaigning rather than human rights or animal rights, earthling rights campaigning and systems change. Hi there. And I've also got a keen interest and steep learning curve, but learning a lot recently about plant ecology and foraging. My husband Terry's background is in agricultural engineering, which is much more useful directly, as you can imagine. And he grew up in a small holding, so he's seen firsthand the horrors and how animals are treated by the meat and dairy industries. I mean, literally firsthand. He's also got a keen interest and a skill, I would say, in green engineering and building, including renewable systems and transport, green transport. And we both have a passion for non-centralised renewable energy, microgeneration, and off-grid living. We both became vegan in 2003 when we got married. That was a pact. It's part of our marriage vows. And our daughter is 8. She's been vegan all her life, lucky thing. So, sorry, I think I've got to tweak this a bit, the notes. Just a quick run through of what else we've done, because I think it might make sense later on. In 2000, we co-founded an organisation called SkillNet Group, CIC, which is now called BMIX. It's a social enterprise which supports people with and without learning difficulties to work together equally to challenge inequality and make radical differences in communities. So a lot of campaigning work. It also incorporated several social firms, including recording and rehearsal studios, a catering firm, an eco-cafe, a woodwork shop, and an inclusive performing arts project. A little later, we bought an old car yard in the centre of Canterbury and converted it to a low-impact working hub for small businesses and social enterprises. It has solar PV installed and rainwater harvesting for toilet flushing, and a terrace garden for tenants to use, so it's as kind of eco as it can be in the middle of Canterbury. Then in 2010, we founded the Abbott's Mill project in Canterbury. The aim of that is to create an urban hub of got distracted. Urban hub which will be an exemplar of earth-friendly, compassionate living and incorporating an education and peace centre. That's been a project we've been working on for 10 or more years. It's in the middle of Canterbury, it's a conservation area, so it's slow, but we're getting there. The entire project will be powered by installing a water wheel into the mill race with the former Abbott's Mill, hence the name of the project. So it'll be run completely through microgeneration. And since that time, we've also been managing various areas of ancient woodland and small areas of ancient woodland, and developing and running a low-impact wood yard called Howfield Wood Yard and Hawkins Logs, based on traditional woodland management techniques, and that's become a small hub for other earth-focused enterprises, such as a wood chainsaw carving sculptor, a vegan chef, a local ceramicist, and a vegan baker. And then in 2013, I set up Canterbury Vegans and Kent Vegan Parenting Facebook groups. And then in 2014, founded the Kent Vegan Events, which includes a monthly vegan market in Canterbury and an annual vegan festival. And then, this will all make sense later, sorry, it's not going on a bit, but in the following year, we set up a vegan eco-commune with another couple with the aim of establishing a learning environment for vegan low-impact living. And we ran this over 3 years and shared the space with a total of 16 different people, including a dog and 4 cats. So that was a lot of learning. That was kind of in preparation for what we're doing now, really. So Vegan Organics Kent is our first joint venture into farming. So it's a steep learning curve, but we're asking people, lots of people, perfect timing as Ian walks in, lots of questions, and we're very passionate about what we want to do. And we know some fantastically experienced and knowledgeable people, and we think we're quick learners. So getting just back onto the actual farm itself. There we go. So our mission is to develop a veganic farm and ecologically positive working hub based on permaculture and agroforestry principles, incorporating low-impact building and the use of locally sourced materials for the benefit of humans, animals, and the local natural environment. And our whole enterprise aims to be carbon negative, eventually, concrete-free, which it already is, single-use plastic-free, and off-grid. So our principles behind Vegan Organics Kent are, where I go back, to model ways in which we can all live in harmony with our natural environment, with other animals and each other, to research and employ existing and emerging methodologies and best practice in veganic permaculture, veganic farming, agroforestry, and low-impact building and technologies. To collaborate with like-minded ethical organisations and enterprises for specific trials and projects as part of the farm. So as I said earlier, being community sufficient rather than self-sufficient, we need to all kind of work together and collaborate as much as possible and learn from each other. So an example of that we'll talk about a bit later is we're trialling an acre and a half of our farm with heritage wheat. We have trialled, we've done that already. We weren't actually thinking about growing cereals, but a local sourdough baker approached us, who's also veganic and vegan, and called Wild Bread in Faversham, and he was really keen on looking at ancient grains and heritage grains. So we agreed. I kind of moaned a bit about that for a while, but yeah, kind of softened to looking into that and what else we could grow afterwards. So so that's collaboration. And then looking at disseminating what we learn about what we do with the wider community, including the farming community, the vegan community, and wider society. And then providing educational, volunteering and work experience opportunities in the fields of veganic, permaculture and agroforestry and low impact living, including for people who are disadvantaged, so marginalised groups of people as well, which probably connects with what we've done in the past, really. So making it as inclusive as possible. So, getting on to the point, how are we planning to do this? How have we started doing this? Our aim is really to transform 5.6 hectares of previously permanent grassland in Bourton to cultivate around 5.2 hectares. You have to be over 5 hectares to be able to claim certain farm subsidies, as you probably know. The rest of the site will be designated for buildings and wildlife ponds, reservoirs, paths and tracks. So all our buildings will be made from locally coppiced wood, including chestnut from our own woodland, which is only 3 miles away from the site, and also from some poplar, which is just down the road from a neighbouring farmer's land, which we'll then replant with mixed native woodland species. The aim is that the entire farm will centre around, as I've said, veganic agroforestry, and includes some forest garden areas, one main forest garden area or food forest area. So trialling their more unusual perennial crops and trees, stuff that the Woodland Trust wouldn't fund for us, for example. So we have to be a bit, more creative about that. And also kind of going from the food forest end of the spectrum, if you like, into the continuum, through to alley cropping, which is, as you probably know, rows of trees and then alleys in between with other crops, can be perennial or can be rotated crops, and companion planting in between the trees as well. So we're looking at a variety of nuts and fruit and vines, and also willow and poplar and alder for short rotation coppice, for building and craft and fencing materials, and also dyes and fabric crops. And we'll also incorporate green manure crops in rotation and as underlays, building our own green compost, which we learnt a lot from Tolly over here. It was a revelation when we saw his compost pile. Soil building and companion planting, as I've mentioned. We also want to trial other crops, such as hopefully hemp, halfway or probably more than halfway through the licensing process for hemp. So fingers crossed that'll go. It's been difficult, as you probably know, in this country recently, so hopefully that'll go well. We also want to trial water chestnuts, because we have a stream running through the plot. We know that no one else is growing those commercially in this country. So we've just been talking to the RHS about partnering with them, hopefully on a research trial for that as well. And then also other things like heritage and ancient grains and flax and that kind of thing. We don't plough. We've agreed that we won't plough, and we're hoping that we can move forward to a no-till approach. But obviously, if we're incorporating cereals and grains, that's a little bit more difficult. So any ideas about that, how we could use a no-till approach but still be growing some cereals, would be great. So the kind of working hub, the buildings, if you like, will provide space for and demonstrate low-impact building techniques, technologies, and craft enterprises. It'll consist of a chestnut barn made from our own wood, a chestnut pole barn, which we've already built, which we'll see a bit later. Both will have solar PVs installed and rainwater harvesting. The pole barn already has got that. And also possibly a wind turbine if we get planning for that, small one. And battery storage as well, so we'll be much more, kind of sufficient throughout the year and throughout the day. And also a show person's wagon, we're calling it. Some people might say showman's, but we're calling it a show person's wagon, which you'll see a bit later. And eco-pods or shepherd's huts, or those kinds of things for people to come and stay who are helping on the farm, who are maybe coming on courses, who are woofing or work away type people. And the aim really is to sell our food produce to the surging vegan retail and catering sector in East Kent. We're lucky because it's just amazing in where we live. We're well connected, we're well embedded within that community, so we know a lot of people. We know that there's the demand there. People are asking us, when are you going to be growing stuff that we can buy? So we've already done, if you like, that kind of market research. We might also run a stall, we'll have to see how it goes, run a stall at local farmers markets and possibly an honesty box shop, something like that, similar to Lynn's Shed, which is at Tolhurst Organics, but smaller, I think. We haven't got quite as much space. But also, as I've pointed out, we'd like to work, and we are working with other like-minded organisations just to find out what people want and to kind of run things in partnership with them from the beginning. So like we're doing with Wild Bread Bakery, we've also talked to local herbalists, or people are approaching us really, would you grow this, would you grow that? So if it's in demand, if it's ethical, if it's something we're interested in, then we'll be up for doing that. And we also want to offer training and volunteering and working opportunities to eventually to local people and students and people disadvantaged in the labour market. And we're already connected with several... Yes, sorry. I know there's a lot of information on this. As we go through, there's less talking and more pictures. Sorry. Yeah, well pointed out though. Thank you. We're connected with several social enterprises who work with different groups of people, so we're already kind of doing that kind of work with children and people with learning difficulties. Here we go. We're off. So, sorry, it's getting stuck. So, okay, the story so far. It's Rosa in our letterbox. Haha. There he is, the man himself. So we've just a bit of kind of context, really, I suppose, and what we found useful in terms of how we've got to where we are. We've lived in the village for around 15 years, or near, very near the village. So, and East Kent for most of our lives. This makes it sound a little bit dull, but we have travelled quite a bit. But we've already built up good relationships with local people, and we're very well connected with our local church, and also we have allotments which are next to us, actually right in the middle of our farm. So, and the people there are really, really supportive. You don't always hear that about allotment kind of people, but people kind of bring us fruit and veg, and they're really excited about what we're doing, and always talking about how they use permaculture themselves and they don't spray. And so I think we've built up a good relationship, and we're looking, because it's kind of a bit of a remote area, we're looking after their allotments, keeping an eye on them so they're not having any problems with stuff being stolen like they were before. So we just feel like it's really, what I'm getting at is it's important to have good human relationships as well, and be well kind of connected, embedded into your community, and know what other people are doing, as well as that good, important relationship with the land. Terry's also already running a forestry business from our woods that I mentioned earlier, and has got lots of experience in agricultural mechanics and eco-building and renewables, so we've kind of got all that background. Other research and preparation, if you like, we've been doing this for probably all our lives really, but more recently in the last couple of years, I think the first thing that our introduction, if you like, to veganics, to veganic farming, was reading Growing Green, which is Ian Tolhurst and Jenny Hall's book, which we call our Bible, and we're always kind of referring back to. I'm sure there's copies here for sale, I imagine. And we've been VON members as well, so we get the magazine, and we've, got the information from the website and read lots of the stuff that you can get from VON. So we've been doing all that research for many years. Then we, can't remember when it was, spring, I think, we visited Tolly on his farm and had a day gleaning some of his wisdom, some information from him, which was brilliant. And then in May this year, I did a week-long course at Schumacher College in Totnes on forest gardens and edible ecosystems with Martin Crawford and Caroline Aitken, Ella Sparks and Jane Gleason. So that was really immersive and amazing as well. And then really just lots of reading and asking questions and, internet research. And we've got friends who are farmers. We've got friends who are permaculturalists. Joe Barker, many of you, might have heard of, who's a good friend locally. Foragers, agroforestry experts. We're also working with a man called Steve Newman, we just kind of came across, he happens to be local in our town, who's an agroforestry expert who runs Biodiversity International. And then I've mentioned already, we're talking with the RHS, Chris Moncrief, who's their head of horticulture, who's come down, and we're looking at partnering with them, and the Woodland Trust, and Ben Raskin from the Soil Association, and local farmers who've given us loads of advice on, what works in pests and what not to do. And also our Natural England officer, I think you call them, liaison officer, Dan Toussaint, has been amazing from the beginning. So I suppose I'm telling you this just because there's so many people out there who want to see this kind of thing happen and are really, really supportive and helpful. And, I've spent days sitting down with Dan. He's kind of walked us through the countryside stewardship scheme application and, always happy to answer questions. We're also members of the Farm Woodland Forum, which is really, really useful as well. So other kind of, in terms of preparation, what we've done before we got going, if you like, was obtaining permitted development for our glass house, which we want to build, and the main barn. So we've got that for 5 years. We've got, we can be on the land for 5 years while we do those buildings. And also planning permission for our pole barn. We had to have planning permission for that because of the distance from the main buildings. And those all include solar PV and rainwater harvesting. Also getting set up with the Rural Payments Agency for the basic payment scheme. Any farmers will know about that. It's a subsidy for just having the land, really, at the moment. But it's all those kind of things, you need to do and think about in advance. But it's not that complicated at all, and there's people to help. And then applying for the countryside stewardship scheme and being accepted onto the mid-tier organic programme. So that is more money there. It's not millions, but it all helps. It's bits of money for doing what you're doing. So in terms of kind of getting the site ready, really, if you like, we've been fortunate to be able to observe the land where we are for at least a year. I mean, sometimes that's been frustrating because we've just wanted to get going and planting stuff. But actually, it's what permaculturists will say. If you can observe your land, just leave it as it is for a year, then it's really useful because you see how the soil works, you see what grows there, what weeds, so-called weeds, you're just able to tune in really with what nature is teaching us, and where things grow and which animals are attracted to those plants. And most of those plants are edible for humans as well as other creatures, so that's useful as well. So although sometimes that's felt like it's taken ages, and I'm not a very patient person, I get a bit frustrated, but actually I keep telling myself that's good because we really know our land now. But while we've been doing that, we have been able to get on with all those things in the background, and the kind of admin-y stuff, if you like, and funding, but also creating tracks and hard standing areas in preparation for the main barn and for the caravan coming on. Adding new wooden gates and fencing to the main field. Adding, you can see there in the middle, a mini Wi-Fi tower, because we're too far away for BT cabling to go underground. So we power that by battery and via our electric car battery. So we charge our cars up, our electric cars or vans, and then connect those with jump leads, basically. So every now and again we have to go and recharge the Wi-Fi, but at least I can turn it off, so it's not zapping our brains all the time. And then there's Rosa in one of our, I was saying to Paul or someone earlier, Rosa likes holes, she likes climbing and she likes going down. So she's in one of the holes that's a foundation hole ready for the barn going up. Compost loos, it's another thing we did before. All important toilet to have in place. It's going very slowly, sorry, go back again. There we go. So we've got two, one in our accommodation field and one in our field. I think I mentioned we're pretty much off-grid. The only thing we are off-grid, but we have gas still, so we're not completely carbon neutral. So anyway, there's our loos. The one in the middle there, the cherry tree, that was just a view from our compost toilet in May, so I just thought you'd like to see that, really. It's quite nice. It means people stay in the toilet for quite a long time, just looking at the blossom. It's nice to be living, really, close with the rest of nature. You know, it just makes you think differently, and the seasons and the weather and all those things. It means you're really in tune with nature. So in January we instated rabbit fencing, which has largely done the trick. Around 2 fields, you have to pay, I don't know if you're aware, but you have to pay up front for things like that, but then you do get that money back if you're part of a countryside stewardship scheme. So we could only afford to put up front a certain amount of money, so we've done 2 fields. And it went from looking out at night to thousands of faces, eyes staring back at us, to I think we had just 2 rabbits left in the field who we had to relocate. So that's helped so far. We've also got solar-powered electric fencing as well, because we're looking at planting hazel, so we're hoping that might help a little bit with squirrels, but it's certainly helped with rabbits who were just hopping over as well. So it's not too strong, so it doesn't hurt anybody. Then in March this year, we held a community tree planting weekend. We got funding, I think 60% from a Woodland Trust, from their More Hedges, More Trees programmes. So all native, obviously native woodland trees for our a 4-metre wide woodland strip along our main field, and then hedgerow as well. So again, that's just been for actually 3 of the fields we've done that so far. Obviously as a wildlife corridor, obviously because it's important to plant trees. Some of them are edible, but also as a spray barrier, because we're working towards organic soil with the Soil Association, you know, going for organic first and then vegan organic after that. And we definitely do need for our main field a spray barrier, because just a few months ago they glyphosated the whole field of beans. So luckily it wasn't windy, but it's still very depressing to see. So yeah, that'll hopefully grow up quickly. We've got plans to put in more shelter belt trees, faster growing trees like alder. Anyway, I'll come on to that in a bit. So we also want to avoid plastic. Single-use plastic certainly, but even plastic tree guards. We've used some where we haven't got rabbit fencing, but where we've got rabbit fencing we haven't used any, which has been fine. I think probably 95% of our trees have survived. The ones that didn't was really because of water, because we had a drought basically through the spring and summer. So, but yeah, that's people using chicken wire to make some tree protection. and Rosa there planting a Scots pine. I managed to get 25 Scots pines out for the Woodland Trust, so because they're my favourite trees. So that's quite exciting. And then after we had about 40 people, I think, come to the community tree planting weekend, which was really good fun. And it means that the trees weren't quite planted exactly where you want them to be, but people enjoyed themselves, and the trees are doing well. So, and it's just good to involve people, really. We had lots of food and hot chocolate and things. And then after that, we've got a friend who's a shaman, so she came and did a shamanic tree blessing and wassailing ceremony, which was really a lot of fun as well, lovely and inclusive. And then here's just some pictures of us. Here's Rosa up high again, up the cherry picker. How many, I don't know, tens of metres up that was. It's a bit scary, but... And then Rosa in a ditch, or I think Tony called her creche. So we've got our rainwater harvesting. So we're harvesting from the roofs of our pole barn, and also from our caravan, and also from our little shed and compost toilet. So maximising wherever we can, really. We've got 6 water butts, and then 2 10,000 litre underground tanks, and also a reservoir which we've dug out as well, which isn't. We'll puddle that with blue clay, which isn't done yet, and that will be fed from our stream using a solar pump. So yeah, here's our pole barn, which is on the. We keep calling it the woofing field, but that confuses some people. So the accommodation field, where people will come and stay. It's our smallest field, called Under Acre, and which is where we will put the show person's wagon that we've made, and we've got a horse box which has been donated to us, so that's converted for someone to live in and who's helping us on the farm. So yeah, there's our pole barn going up, which is all chestnut from our woodland. And we've got underneath there, in the middle, you can see the rainwater tank going underneath there. So that will be really, apart from obviously harvesting rainwater and the solar panels will go on top of there, but also a space for people to be able to work. And we'll probably put a kind of community kitchen in there as well, and just where people can do the kind of crafts that, work that they've got a bit of shelter, really. It's also going to be surrounded. We've got the more trees coming from the Woodland Trust, so it's going to be surrounded by cherries and paulownia, not funded by the Woodland Trust, the paulownia. So these are our water chestnut beds, which we've built ahead of sourcing any water chestnuts. Don't ask why, but we're very hopeful that the RHS are going to help us with sourcing those. Chinese water chestnuts, obviously not European ones, which are not allowed. So, yeah, if people know, they basically grow in kind of like a paddy. It needs to be not flowing water, so we'll flood these. It's a very, very slow-running stream, but it flows all year. Even when we had the drought, the stream was running, so there's always water there. So we'll just flood these, and then we've got glass, which we've salvaged from a local school which was having a building job done, so we've got some glass covers to put over the top just to keep the soil temperature and the water temperature at a stable level. This is, all a bit higgledy-piggledy in terms of timing, but this was April, as I mentioned, working with Wild Bread Bakery, vegan-run sourdough bakery, who are really keen on their heritage grain. So in April, we sowed April Bearded Red, a heritage wheat. We sowed 125 kilograms of that, broadcast it, hand-sowed. There were about 6 of us, and with everything, with a kind of, we did a very light till beforehand, and then again a light rake afterwards, and a Cambridge roll afterwards. Took a day. So And we did it barefoot because, why not really? It just felt right at the time. But that was good. And then we sowed that in April, just before the weather forecast was saying it was going to rain the next day or two, and it was going to be quite a lot of rain, but that didn't come. So we were panicking slightly. We kept going out there, just brown grain, just lying there, looking like it might be dead, not knowing too much about that really, and thinking that's the end of it then. And then after 3 weeks of no rain, after we'd sown the grain, the next night it rained, and then that's what came up just after 3 weeks of drought and 1 night of rain. So that was a miracle really for us. More pictures of wheat. And then again in the late summer, in August, mainly showing you that just to prove that it did grow, but also in amongst all the other lovely flowers, lots and lots of thistle. But combines are amazing things. They can sort that kind of stuff out. But everyone was happy, living in there. And just the rogue sunflower there that we saw, it just popped up one sunflower right in the middle, really happy. We saw as a sign, so we've kept all the seed from that sunflower, and we're going to have a strip of sunflowers between our short rotation coppice and our hazel and mulberry grove with those seeds. Just some more, just to show you I put happy weeds, happy wheat, happy insects. And the aphids love the thistle, so that was great for the ladybirds and keeping the aphids off everything else. So brilliant. So a little time of panicking slightly. We sowed this late, and you need to harvest this kind of wheat late as well. So we had a bit more time, but we could see the weather was going to change, and we were slightly panicking that we wanted to get someone else to come and harvest it for us. That was always the plan, not to do it ourselves. Local farmer, maybe had finished their own harvest, or we could just hire in a plot combine, but it didn't happen. And then in the end, on eBay, amazing eBay, Terry found this combine harvester, 1981 Massey Ferguson combine harvester, which we bought. Who'd have thought it? We've got nowhere to store it. It's under a big tarpaulin now, but it's a lot smaller, obviously, than the real modern combines. And because that's his kind of skill, he managed to get it working again. So, yeah, that was pretty cool doing that. We've also bought a 1970s corn trailer. So if you look at our farm, there are no pylons or anything, and in one direction you can't see any houses or pylons, but you've got this kind of 1970s corn trailer, wooden corn trailer. You could almost be, back in time. It does feel good. And then we've also bought a mill, because the sourdough baker didn't have a mill, so we've bought a flour mill as well, because we're looking at, we're going to use that for other things. And also a 1971 baler. All these things we were hoping that we'd be able to get contractors to do, but because our lane is quite narrow, and because people are just, I don't know, maybe conventional farmers don't seem that up for sharing, really. Sharing information, but not equipment, maybe that's fair enough. Also a winnowing machine, which is a late 1940s winnowing machine, which is all wooden with wooden paddles. All that from eBay, looking on eBay. That was quite interesting, actually, getting that combine up the lane. It got stuck a couple of times, but right in the middle of hopping as well, so the local farmer was a bit grumpy. That's just baling the straw from that wheat. We kind of made the most of of what we've got. We know local animal rescues and places who will have that straw. So we did the same with hay previously. So that was our first crop, really, was hay. It was no effort from us, apart from putting it together. But okay, so I've spoken, quite a lot, I think, about the human connection and being community sufficient rather than self-sufficient, and just having that really good relationship with other humans, locally and further afield, and just having spaces really where we as a family, but other people as well, when they come and work and help and stay, just feel relaxed and comfortable. So yeah, we've had our friends TP up and had kind of community events in there. Rose is very much involved in planting and helping on the farm. I think that was an event we had last year, a bit of a party and a sing-song. And then that was kind of right next to the caravan, the picture on the far right, where we sowed anywhere we basically have to dig. So we had to dig to put in our rainwater harvesting tank. Then we've just sown wildflowers and planted more perennials. So a perennial buckwheat I've planted, and mint and other herbs, lemon balm and that kind of thing, so we can start to create some ground cover as the beginning really of the food forest. And then, as is usual, loads and loads of fat hen and persicaria kind of just pops up. And that right up until really the beginning of October, that was just buzzing with insects, with different types of bees, and all very happy there. On all those, a lot of that people would call weeds, but also edible for us, the red shank. Just a bit more about people spaces, really. Yeah, our teepee with our little gathering, our raised bed, which was made out of an old snooker table, which was being, not even sold off, given away by Whitstable Snooker Club. We were closing down, and they just wanted to get rid of all their tables, which were all made from mahogany. So we've got a mahogany raised bed there with our herbs and other bits and pieces in. The obligatory swing for the children and the adults, and just some hanging baskets, which we found. We did a community litter pick in April, and they were just chucked away like that, brand new. So there we go. More about people spaces. Our show persons wagon, which I've mentioned already, which is part of our farm helper accommodation. So we like the old machinery and old stuff from eBay. So that was a 1940s iron trailer bed from eBay from a company called Midland Stone. That's what's. Ooh, was that me? No, that's what that started on, and then Terry and two of our friends have basically built that with our wood from our wood yard, and with reclaimed wood as well from other places, and insulated with hemp. Yeah, there we go. And we've put the wood burner in just recently, and I had my 50th birthday meal in there as well last month. So it's lovely. It's a lovely space. And then we're still October, aren't we? Yeah, last month we had a farm blessing with our local church and other community members. So our local vicar came along, and I kind of wrote out a service, and we had lots of earth-related singing and earth-related readings. So it was really lovely, and lots of people who came who might not otherwise be. They are connected with the veganism now because they can't escape it because we go to church and we're there really. But people who may not be interested otherwise, who came along and were really, really excited about what we're doing and wanting to help and get involved. And a lot of those people have helped with our tree planting and that kind of thing. And yeah, just a really supportive community. So that was lucky. That was lovely. Okay, I'm going on a bit, probably, but there's quite a lot to tell you about. So what else have we done? So we've obviously, shown you the caravan. We were living in a touring caravan at the beginning last summer, and then in September last year we brought on a static caravan, which felt like just luxury, really, after living in a touring for a year. It was quite tight. And then adding our wood burner to that. Our electricity, as I've mentioned, for the caravan as well as for the Wi-Fi, comes from our electric car battery. So we just charge the car up. We've got charging points sorted out quite locally, 2 of which are on our own land, which are solar powered. So we just charge the cars and then bring those and connect them with jump leads to our batteries under the caravan. Then it's not a picture up there, but we dug out the reservoir, and we had 2 halves of hay, which we sold to local vegan-run animal rescues. We organised soil samples for each field. We applied to the Soil Association, which I've mentioned already. We got our compost area and wood chip pile going. We were just having wood chip from local tree surgeons who would just come in every now and again and just dump a load because, it's useful for them. But now we've got our own wood chipper, new wood chipper, so we'll be using mostly our own wood from our own woodland. We've redefined 4 new fields. So we've got 9 fields officially now, so just so it's easier to claim under the Countryside Stewardship Scheme for top fruit. And we've successfully applied to LOCASE, which is a European fund for money towards capital items, a wood chipper, a tractor, a 4-loader, tipping trailer. And I think I've spoken about that already. And then we just designed our new planting plan, so where we're going to put the trees in the alleys, the kind of rows of trees in the alleys and what we're going to put where, and submitted that to the Woodland Trust after, again, Tolly, I was looking at lots of places where can we source our crop trees, basically, where were the best places to go, and then he suggested, because you'd done something with the Woodland Trust, so we approached them and they agreed to fund pretty much all our crop trees, all our native crop trees anyway, so that's really helpful. And then we've refurbished the horse box, and we've had the meeting with the RHS about the water chestnuts. So over the next year or so, we'll be implementing that agroforestry planting plan with the Woodland Trust. We've got 3-year kind of agreed funding planting for this year. This winter will be 2,000 crop trees in the alleys and also as the beginning of the food forest. We've already started mulching for some part of the food forest for other perennials to go in there this winter and spring. We'll be incorporating the beetle banks and the predator strips and the wildflower and nettle strips. Ponds, log piles, we've already done a lot of that. Living sculptures from willow. Making the most of the weeds and lots of wood chip. And we'll also be completing the purchase of the main field and creating the ponds and building the main barn, which is on our field, and adding the solar PVs as well with a new fund, a LOCASE, another European fund, LOCASE 2. Hopefully, if the B word doesn't get in the way, stop that happening. And also finishing off getting the license to grow the hemp, building the glass house. This has all got to happen in the next year, so hopefully hosting an introduction. Yeah, okay, Dan. Okay. Introduction to permaculture, and talking to Graham Burnett about hopefully doing that. Last one, there you go. So that was it, really. Just leave you with one of my favourite quotes from Margaret Mead, which I always use. Matt will know. You can't go anywhere without seeing that. Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And the Chinese proverb about planting trees. And that's just our Instagram and Facebook, if anyone wants to get in touch. I guess because I've gone on and on, sorry I didn't time that, did I? There might not be any time for questions, but perhaps people can come and just talk to me to one side afterwards if you're interested. Thank you very much.